A bipartisan group of American lawmakers has asked the Biden administration to punish South Africa for what it sees as the country's support of Russia's war in Ukraine by moving a major trade conference scheduled to be held in South Africa this year to another country. The request, expressed in a letter issued last week, is the first tangible move by members of the U.S. government to retaliate for the growing perception in Washington that South Africa's connection with Russia is threatening America's national interests. Hello and welcome. This is Rain Smith, and you are watching the New Africa channel. The letter was sent to Secretary of State Antony Blinken, U.S. Trade Representative Katherine and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. In the letter, U.S. officials said intelligence suggests that South Africa may have helped supply Russia with arms for the war, pointing to the Lady R, a Russian cargo ship subject to U.S. sanctions docked at a naval port in Cape Town last December. The American officials said they do not begrudge South Africa the right to maintain a friendship with Russia or to fail to denounce the invasion. They claim, however, that South Africa may have crossed a boundary by providing material assistance for the conflict. Intelligence suggests that the South African government used this opportunity to covertly supply Russia with arms and ammunition that could be used in its illegal war in Ukraine, the letter from the lawmakers said. South African officials say the country is non-aligned on the conflict and denies selling weapons to Russia. U.S. lawmakers also cited other pieces of evidence to prove that South Africa is not actually neutral in the war as it claims. They singled out joint military exercises held in February with Russia and China. A Russian cargo plane subject to U.S. sanctions was allowed to land at a South African Air Force base in April, and South Africa's plan to host a BRICS summit in August, which Russian President Vladimir Putin may attend. American lawmakers and the Biden administration have been at odds over how to respond to these suspicions for a long while. However, they have identified the upcoming African Growth and Opportunity Act meeting, Washington's flagship trade program, as an opportunity to strike back at South Africa. The African Growth and Opportunity Act provides duty-free access to the U.S. trade market for about 36 African nations. This year's meeting to further discuss the act is being held in Johannesburg. South Africa is one of the biggest beneficiaries of the act, which allows sub-Saharan African countries duty-free access to the U.S. market provided they meet certain conditions. South Africa's exports to the U.S. through African Growth and Opportunity Act were estimated at $3 billion last year. The U.S. is South Africa's second biggest trade partner behind China. We are seriously concerned that hosting the 2023 African Growth and Opportunity Act Forum in South Africa would serve as an implicit endorsement of South Africa's damaging support for Russia's invasion of Ukraine and possible violation of U.S. sanctions law, said the lawmakers' letter. Moving November's meeting to another country would send a clear and important message that the United States continues to stand with Ukraine and will not accept our trading partners' provision of aid to Russia's ongoing and brutal invasion, the letter from the U.S. lawmakers also said. South African Foreign Ministry spokesperson Clazen Monyela said in a statement that the letter had been noted, but South Africa still enjoys the support of the U.S. government for its hosting of the African Growth and Opportunity Act meeting. Meanwhile, the spokesman for South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on Monday disclosed that any talk of formal sanctions for South Africa over Russia was reckless and purely alarmist. Also, Judd Devermont, a special assistant to President Joe Biden focusing on Africa, said the White House shared Congress's concern over South Africa's potential security partnership with Russia. However, he declined to say whether the administration was considering a change of venue for the African Growth and Opportunity Act Forum. I'm not going to get into the specifics of private conversations with the South Africans, but be sure we are having these conversations, he told an online media briefing. The request by American lawmakers to move a major trade conference from South Africa as a response to perceived support for Russia's war in Ukraine raises concerns and requires a balanced analysis. On one hand, the bipartisan group's concern over South Africa's connection with Russia reflects a valid apprehension for the U.S. government regarding its national interests. If South Africa is indeed involved in supporting Russia's actions, it could have potential repercussions for American strategic priorities. On the other hand, South Africa has maintained its innocence and neutrality on the Ukrainian conflict, and punishing the country based on mere perceptions may undermine diplomatic and economic relations and the principle of innocent until proven guilty. It is essential to carefully consider the available evidence and engage in diplomatic dialogue to ensure a fair and informed response that upholds the principles of justice and international cooperation. So what do you think of today's video? Do you think the U.S. is being unfair to South Africa by moving a major trade meeting away from Johannesburg because it thinks South Africa is aligned with Russia? Let us know what you think in the comments section below, and as always, do subscribe to the New Africa channel for more interesting future videos.